Welcome to RotoWire Fantasy Football Live, the DFS and Gambling Show every Saturday. Now, we're early this week, all right? First of all, before we introduce John, let's point this out. We're an hour early because those London games, week 4, 5, and 6, that means the Sunday start, sit, stream, that gets up to 11 a.m. on Saturday. John's gracious enough to come in the next 3 weeks at 10 a.m. Eastern. And as I said, when you're gambling, look, pay attention to who you're listening to. I'm a fantasy football guy. So player props, fine. If you want gambling winners, think about who you're trusting. Look, yesterday, Adam Thompson. Today, John Ryan. These are people who are documented winners. Do the research. This is what they do for work. So that's why I bring these guys on. These guys are the best. John is continuing to crush. John, as we know, I go over this every week. He has 68% last 4 years on his 10-unit bets. In the last 2 weeks, if you listen to the show, and John said just message him, and he'll give you the picks. 2 weeks ago, it was Florida, I believe, against Tennessee. They were getting points. They won outright, like John said. Last week, it was Alabama, that cash. So I've rode John on those two. Easy winners. John's been doing this for almost 3 decades. He works with RotoWire, NFL, college football. His NFL and NCAA football last year is 65% against the spread. John, welcome in. Always great to have you here.
Thanks for the intro, and kudos to your work too, Jim, because you are my go-to guy for DFS. And again, last week you gave out more winners for the people, and let's do it again this week. Why not?
John, the 3 cheap quarterbacks 3 weeks in a row, they all hit. It was Baker Mayfield 3 weeks ago, 300 and a couple touchdowns. The week after, it was Stroud, 386 and 2 touchdowns. Last week, I said, hold your nose. It's Andy Dalton. He went for about 350 and 2 touchdowns. Anyway, you're rolling. I'm rolling. John's with the Predictive Playbook Sports channel. You can follow him at John Ryan Sports 1. John will remind you that at the end and tell you about the Predictive Playbook channel. But, John, we're going to get right into a play here. So everybody's excited about the Ravens-Browns game. The Browns defensively playing out of their minds. Now, look, I was in on the Browns heavily in, but I look at the schedule. They played 3 offenses that probably aren't going to be like, well, they played the Bengals, but it was in a, Joe Burrow compromise, bad weather. They played Pittsburgh. There's limitations there. Tennessee, probably a bad offense. So the Browns defense, I think they're going to be great. I wonder if they're going to be as great as we've seen. I hope. Not sure. The Ravens, they just know how to win, right? John Harbaugh, great coach, but they're hurting, John. Beckham and Bateman, the receivers, are both out. Ronnie Stanley, the left tackle, is out. Center Linderbaum is maybe going to play, but he's missed the last couple games, so he's going to be limited. Defensively, both outside linebackers, Odafe Owe and David Ojabo are out, still without corner Marlon Humphrey. What a mess. John, make some sense of this game and tell us who's going to cover. It's Browns -1.5 as we look at this game.
Well, this is a huge game, obviously, for both teams. It's a divisional matchup, and this is a division that you and I talked about before the season even began. That was a real toss-up, that even the Steelers could find a way to win the division. There's really no clear cut favorite in this division, even when Burrow was healthy. And, admire that comeback, playing hurt and getting the job done by the Bengals this past week, too. But in this game, there's, the analytics bring the clarity. There's a lot of subjectivity with people betting and stuff. Everybody has an opinion, and nobody's opinion's wrong. You got to respect what they say, even if you disagree with it 100%. But in this game, the numbers really, I think, bring it to focus. And you're going to bet on teams that lost their last game by 3 or fewer points. We know that the Ravens really kind of gave one away last week. They lost by 3. They're facing a foe that held their previous opponent to 6 or fewer points. That would be the Browns, obviously. And our team is priced between a 4-point dog and 4-point favorite, commonly called a team that's priced between the 4s, if you will. That's how we guys say it, I guess. That set of parameters, Jim, 34-19 straight up, 64% winners, 36-17 against the spread for 68. And the over is in play here. And I think this is where I'm going to the window with on this game, 37-14-2, 73% winners, 25 years without one losing season. Wow. And there's more. If it is a divisional matchup, which this obviously is. 13-6 against the number would be the Ravens, and 13-4-2 over for 77% over the last 25 seasons. So although the betting lines right now are certainly favoring the under in this game, I think contrarian is the way to go, and I wouldn't be surprised to see this total points scored exceed the posted total by double digits. So I like the over.
You know, when you talk about this, now the NFL standpoint of this, we finally saw Deshaun Watson play well last week. The first week, horrible weather, rain, wind, played Cincinnati, didn't look good. Second week, man, that game already, Pittsburgh, the pass rush was just relentless. He had no time to throw. And then finally, he had an easier matchup last week, and he shredded. And I think when you're talking about this over, John, from an NFL standpoint, those both outside linebackers that are missing for the Ravens, that hurts their pressure packages. This is a team that schemes up pressure. And that is two major cogs out of the rotation. And Marlon Humphrey still being out, that's a major problem because they really don't have anybody to deal with Amari Cooper. And then you talk about, we got to get to the over. Both teams are going to have to score here. Well, I think what the Ravens are going to have to lean on here is we know that pass rush is coming. We saw last week, Lamar got going on the ground. Lamar is going to have to get it done on the ground, but we know he can do that. And he's going to have to take it over with his legs hurt. Probably not going to throw for a ton, but the contrarian angle is smart because we know when the public is usually on something, it's usually for the wrong reasons. And John Ryan, as always, gives you plenty of trends and numbers over time that substantiate with his going of the over. And I wanted to mention, Chris, welcome. Uncle Ted, welcome. Whoever else is in the house, glad you're here. I saw the names in the chat, so that's how I know they're here. All right, let me give you a few DFS plays for this week. I'll give you quarterbacks and running backs. John will come back with another pick. Remember, if you want the start, sit fantasy football stream, that's going to be today, Saturday, not tomorrow, Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern. All right, DFS quarterbacks. Not a lot this week. And I don't have a bargain basement guy. The lowest price guy I could find that I think's in the cash, Brock Purdy this week, 5,500 against Arizona. Arizona has been able to scheme up a little bit of pressure. That's not going to fly against the 49ers blocking scheme. The line itself, the individual components aside from left tackle Trent Williams, it's not great. But they always are able to get the protection enough. And Arizona doesn't have the horses. They're also without their safety, Budda Baker. That's a big deal on the back end with communication. And look, I don't know if Debo is going to play, but I don't think it matters. Purdy is going to be able, this could be a Kittle game. And also Ayuk is supposed to be back. So they have lethal weapons regardless, and McCaffrey as a receiver. So at 5,500, I think Purdy could get you 3 touchdowns in this game. And this is one where we know Arizona beat Dallas, but let's not overlook the idea San Francisco is a juggernaut. Matthew Stafford, 5,700 at Indianapolis. So we saw Stafford really struggle on Monday night. Cincinnati, Lou Anarumo brought up some really good pressure packages to take advantage of a Rams line that's not great. And they were in Stafford's face, and Stafford got yardage. Touchdowns weren't there. Indy's been getting a good pressure rate, but it's certainly not going to have the confusion that they saw last week. And Indy doesn't have corners. And with Stafford getting the ball out quickly, this is going to be a shred game for them. And they can't run. You don't run on Indy anyway, and Kyron Williams is not going to be the one that's going to grind the chains. Look, this is GPP only. Don't play him in cash because we can't trust him at all. 0. But if there's any week that Justin Fields is going to get it done, Denver can't run on defense. They're down 2 of their pass rushing linebackers. They're down their top 2 safeties. They're down a corner. They are shredded, decimated on defense. Look, they have 70 points in Miami. That's a different story. That has to do with the team speed. They couldn't handle it. But this Denver defense is horrible. So Justin Fields has a chance. It could be with his legs. Patrick, and people who worry about DJ Moore, Patrick Surtain plays, I want to say it's 29% man. The rest of his snaps are in zone. So I think DJ Moore actually be okay. So those are my quarterbacks. Give you a few running backs. Same game with Purdy. I think that San Francisco could put up 35, 40 points in this game. So I'm going to go 9,200 on McCaffrey as well. And if he gets it done as a receiver, that helps Purdy, the quarterback we took. DeAndre Swift's only 5,700 against Washington. Again, low price. We've seen him at least 130 yards 2 games in a row. Washington's defense is vaunted, but it's a pass rush. That's it. They're not good against the run. They're not good against the pass. And we've seen now the Philly offensive line, they're taking it to teams like they did, and Swift has real upside here. He could finally get in the end zone. Now, this one, you've got to listen to the overnight news to see what his status is going to be. Adam Schefter usually breaks up. If we hear Cam Akers is going to have a significant role for Minnesota this week, which we don't know yet, so we got to listen to this one and check pregame. If he does, he's 4,900 at Carolina. The Minnesota run blocking has been very good. Carolina's been terrible against the run. So if Akers is going to have a substantial role, again, you've got to check as Schefter breaks news overnight. But if you can go that way, the last one, Khalil Herbert of the Bears, 4,700. Now he's not getting a lot of touches, and Roschon Johnson's heavily involved too. But remember, it's the team's speed for Denver that's the problem. Khalil Herbert's an explosive back. If he gets 9 or 10 carries, he could literally go for 75 or 80 yards and break a long touchdown. He's the type of runner that could get to that defense. So those are my quarterbacks and running backs. All right, John, we've got another betting angle here. So big nationally televised game in the late afternoon window. The Patriots Cowboys, I know they played a few years ago, and it was a dynamite game. I believe it went to overtime. Fun to watch. Teams going in a little different directions. Overall, Cowboys did get beat last week, but overall, Cowboys are trending up. Patriots are kind of treading water. Cowboys are -6 in this game. Their offensive line is really banged up. I believe they were down 3 starters last week, and I'm not sure they're getting many or any or all of them back this week. It's a problem. How do you handicap Cowboys -6 against the Patriots?
Well, I like the Patriots in this matchup, Jim. It's certainly contrarian. The world is on the Cowboys, betting ticket-wise, and the money is on them. And rightfully so. They really did not play well last week. You would expect them to come back. And, Jim, I don't win all the time. I have 5 eliminator entries, and my strategy was to ensure myself of getting at least 2 of those 5 through to this week. Well, guess who I had on those 2 that I thought was a lock to advance? I had the Cowboys. So it was a carnage again, especially in the Circa Eliminator. There was over 2,800 entries eliminated out of 7,400 remaining. Man. And it's repeat of last year. It's going to be down to under 1,000, I think, probably at the end of this week. Wow. So I'm out of 2 of them, but, we'll just keep fighting away. The Patriots here, I think, are in a really good position to pull off an upset. They're going to catch a Dallas team that, sure, maybe expected to bounce back, but maybe they're not as good as everybody thinks they are. I think, in the division, the Eagles, as you mentioned, that offensive line is really playing old-fashioned smash mouth football, and I think they'll do it again. I love that pick you have on DeAndre Swift, by the way. I think that is an absolute steal for anybody's DFS lineup. And in this game here, we have a couple angles that I just want to make reference to. So we're going to take a record here of 47-40 straight up for these dogs, 59-25-3 against the spread for 70%, Jim, over the last 5 seasons alone. The requirements are to bet on road dogs that are facing a host that is coming off a road loss, with the game taking place in the first half of the season. Pretty simple stuff there, right? That's easy to remember. You can track it yourself and benefit from this for not only this season, but many seasons to come. And that supports the Patriots. A second betting algorithm of mine that highlights teams playing the second of back-to-back road games in the beginning of the season. You may remember that the Patriots, won a game against the Jets. The Jets did have a chance to win that game, but they didn't. The final score is 15-10. Wasn't that a typical Bill Belichick type of game? It was. Yep. Playing not to lose is what he was doing, which always makes you nervous when you're betting on them. But in this second algorithm here, this one has gone 71% straight up on the dogs, 34-13-3 against the spread, and if the road warrior that we're betting on is a dog and from the AFC conference, the record improves to 16-5-2 against the number for 76% winning tickets the last 5 seasons. I am all over the Patriots. One last thing, Jim, if I may, in-game betting strategy for the total of this game, because the total does make sense to me. If New England's going to win this game, they're going to have to put some points on the board and more points than they probably have all season, which I think they can do. So in these games that I just mentioned, based on those two algorithms, the first and third quarters are the lowest scoring quarters by far. The second quarter is the highest in the whole game, nearly double what the teams are scoring in the first. So if you like the over in this game, which I do, just bet 50% pre-flop. And then if it's a 3-0 first quarter, then add the other 50% on the over. And it could be 3-3. It could be 6-3, 7-3. I don't think they'll exceed 10 points in this quarter. And if it really is 3-0 or even 0-0 at the end of the first quarter, then you want to jump on the over and take advantage of the price.
See, John, again, I explain this every week. He gives you some learning tools for how to bet. And the in-game betting is a very useful strategy. It's not about all betting before the game starts, what John calls the pre-flop. So, yeah, understand there's multiple ways to approach this. Now, in this game, I mentioned earlier, Dallas's offensive line, I don't know who's playing for them, but they are very banged up, and I would not be surprised if at least two of them were out, but they're not. When they're on the field, they're not 100%. Bill Belichick, it's a coaching matchup, him against Mike McCarthy, and that is no contest. Every time, no contest. Mike McCarthy, get it. He won a Super Bowl. Beautiful. God bless him. He's got some positive things in his past. He's going to be out-coached by the better coaches in the league, and there's a very, very big concern there. Bill Belichick's going to take advantage of the Dallas offensive line woes by going after them. And look, this is very narrative-driven, but the revenge game for Zeke Elliott. And he's been getting carries. And Dallas can be run on in the middle of the field. You can run on them. Would it surprise you, John, to see Zeke go for 80 or 100 yards?
I'd almost love it, to tell you the truth, Jim. I think that's part of why we enjoy the games. I always like seeing a player, prove people wrong, that, he's not done. He's not washed up. He's not too old to play the game. And then he comes into Dallas and runs for 100, and the Patriots go away with a win. That would not make the Dallas Morning News good reading material come Monday morning for sure. But no, yeah, I definitely root for him.
So John is giving you the Patriots plus the points against the Cowboys. Let me give you a few more DFS before John gives you pick number 3. Wide receiver, a couple spend ups here, 3 of them. Devontae Adams, 8,000 at the Chargers. Safety Derwin James is out. It's going to hurt a lot of the flexibility. They're bad on defense anyway. The Chargers are horrific. Their corners haven't been cashing in. There's not stopping anybody through the air. Justin Jefferson obviously shreds them like he shreds everybody. But again, without Derwin James, the lack of versatility, make sure Jimmy Garoppolo is playing before you dump the money on him, because Garoppolo will get him the ball. We've already seen that. I wouldn't trust him if it's going to be Aiden O'Connell or Brian Hoyer, but otherwise Adams is fine. Keenan Allen, 7,900, same game against the Raiders. So if you're going to play that game, stack both of those receivers in there, and that's going to be the way to go. Obviously, no Mike Williams. And Keenan Allen, look, teams are probably going to try to double him, but the Raiders really don't have the horses. Morning, Charlene. So they don't have the horses to deal with Keenan Allen, and he is just getting peppered with targets. Ride it while it's going. There are games where defense will be able to slow him down a little bit because they'll let Josh Palmer and Quentin Johnson try to beat them. The Raiders won't be able to do it. Jalen Waddle at Buffalo. Look, Tyreek Hill is unstoppable, but I imagine Sean McDermott, Bill's coach, is going to try to do something to put some extra attention on Hill. Not that he'll be successful, but I do think Jalen Waddle, Sauger, good morning. We're going to see some good looks for Jalen Waddle coming back from the concussion. His speed is difference-making. He only gets 6 targets in a lot of games, but this game could shoot out. But even if he gets 6 targets, he could do a lot of damage. But I think he gets more in this game. Michael Pittman, 6,500 against the Rams. He's getting like double-digit targets every game. The Rams simply don't have viable corners. The Colts have 2 offensive linemen, left tackle Bernard Raymond, and I believe Quentin Nelson. No, not Ryan Kelly, the center. They're out, and Quentin Nelson's banged up. They're going to have to get the ball out quick, and that's Michael Pittman's game all day long. Amari Cooper, 6,100 against the Ravens. John likes the over in that game. I mentioned Marlon Humphrey's out. Cooper is the very clear alpha for Deshaun Watson, and he will continue to be. And again, with no Marlon Humphrey, that's a major advantage. And remember, the pass rush is compromised with 2 outside linebackers out for the Ravens, so there'll be more time to get the ball to Cooper. Last one, bargain basement-ish. Tank Dell, 4,600 against Pittsburgh, not because of the 2 big games in a row. Last week, Jacksonville blew 2 coverages on 2 long plays. Dell will still be good. But the reason I like him in this game, Pittsburgh in the slot is very vulnerable, and the pass rush, Pittsburgh is going to get to C.J. Stroud. The 4 missing linemen and 2 backups missing as well. That's going to be a problem. Getting it to the slot receiver is going to be critical in this game. Tight ends, I'll give you 2. Jake Ferguson, 3,500 against New England. I've mentioned his name before. 7 targets in 2 different games. He's frequently used in the red zone. They're playing New England, and I believe middle of the field will be – it's not the Bill Belichick defenses of old. They'll have certain things they can do, but Ferguson should be fine at 3,500. Actually, I'm going to Logan Thomas. I don't have a salary, but he's clear to the concussion. Logan Thomas is getting a ton of targets. He had 8 in the opener. He had 3 in the second game. He was knocked out with a concussion, and his replacement got 5 targets. So that is basically 8 targets a game, the Logan Thomas's position. And he missed last week. And Philly is giving it up to the tight end. They're like number 32 against tight ends. So that's your bargain basements. The defense, I'll give you 2. Uncle Ted called 2 touchdowns from Donald Parham last week. He got it. Uncle Ted was a great call. He had 2 catches, 4 yards, 2 touchdowns, but Uncle Ted called the touchdowns. So he could score again. Defense, Washington, 2,400 against the Eagles. Only to save money. Washington could get a couple sacks here. Jalen Hurts could throw an interception. They're going to give up points, but if you're just looking to bail out on money and because you can't spend up, otherwise, even though John is right, the over could be the bet in the Baltimore Browns game. I still like the Browns at 2,800 because even if they score points, there's going to be turnovers. There's going to be sacks. And Charlene tells us Stroud wanted Tank Dell. You're so right. Yeah, he called for him, and he has him on the roster now. That was a beautiful thing. John, you're going to give us the third and final pick of the day. You're going to tell us, first of all, the Panthers play the Vikings, Adam Thielen revenge game, if you will. Vikings, last year, they were winning all the one-score games. Now they're 0-3 in one-score games. Funny how things change in the NFL year over year. The Vikings are 4.5-point favorites here. Tell us who you like and how you break this game down, John.
Well, we have 0-3 teams, and last week the Chargers narrowly escaped being 0-3 with basically the Minnesota Vikings not executing twice in the fourth quarter in the red zone. I honestly had the Chargers as an 8-unit bet and the under as an 8-unit bet, and fortunately both of those won by an act of God, I guess. Sometimes you're the dog, and sometimes you're the fire hydrant, and it's always better to be the dog, right? So we got away with 2 fortuitous wins in that matchup, but it also sets the stage for the Chargers to be a solid betting opportunity. They were my pick, Jim, as you know, to win the AFC conference, and they're at 15-1 right now. That may not sound like a lot. It may sound like, the Chargers should be like 30-1, but I think the market's telling you that the overall market participants have confidence in this Chargers team. So if you like pizza money prop bets, I think that one is the biggest one of value that's out there right now. On these games that are featuring 0-3 teams, which doesn't happen all that much. It's just a scheduling quirk where these 0-3 teams are now facing each other. Denver, how in the world does any NFL team give up 70 points? I wasn't watching the game, but I saw the scores. And it was like watching a Oklahoma Sooner game. The scoreboard is just exploding. Worse yet is that the Miami Dolphins did not score a defensive touchdown. It was all offensive drives. And the last 4 were enormously long drives. It wasn't, getting short fields. It's just mind-blowing. Anyway, the progression type of thing is that you can bet that Denver had a long week of practice, and this is definitely a must-win game. Not that they could even make the playoffs, but, Sean Payton could be coaching 1 year and be fired. Who knows? This is pretty bad.
Quick interruption, John. I screwed up on the intro. John is obviously telling us about the Denver Bears game. I called the wrong one. My fault. Denver's 3.5-point favorites. John, go back to what you were saying. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. No worries. The favorites that are 0-3 in week 4 action are 16-20 straight up, 14-21 to the number. That's not good news for either Denver or the Vikings. The Broncos are, as you said, 4-point favorite against the Bears. The Vikings are 4.5 on the road against the Panthers. And these matchups being 0-3 teams, the home team has gone 5-8 straight up, 4-9 against the number, 8-5 under. So the Bears and the Panthers are in serious trouble of going to 0-4, which at this point, I mean, realistically, if you're a fan of those programs, there's not much hope of anything making the playoffs this year, but the future might be bright down the road. In the Denver matchups, I do like Denver to bounce back here. This is not as strong as the other two, but it's certainly worth like a 5-unit opportunity on a scale of 5 to 10 units was my scale. And what is supported on is you're going to play on road teams priced between the threes that have a poor turnover defense. And turnovers are huge in the NFL, so are third down conversions. But in this case, a turnover defense forcing one or fewer turnovers per game than they give up. And after 2 consecutive games with a negative turnover margin, so the team is playing awfully bad. Here's the bounce back, 56-25, going all the way back to 1980 against the number for 69%. I think it warrants a pretty decent bet on the Denver Broncos to get the job done this Sunday. So that is my pick.
So, John Ryan, I told people at the beginning of the show, by the way, those who are watching the show, before I get John's question, if you're looking for the start-sit fantasy football stream, with the London game being on Sunday, we're doing that in 30 minutes from now if you're live, 11 a.m. Eastern. John, but back to, besides the NFL, you gave me 2 college picks. You gave everybody, anybody that sought you out last week by sending you a direct message or emailing you, then they got a pick. 2 weeks ago, it was Florida over Tennessee. They're getting 5.5. They won straight up like you suggested. Last week, it was Alabama. They came off and they won, covered their game. I want to give you a good props on that. You're consistently winning. But before that, tell everybody where they can find your work and what you have going on and all that good stuff.
You got it. Yeah, we're cruising along here right around 67% college football and NFL for the season. It's matching last season and the year before that, as you said at the beginning of the show. So, we just grind it out. Jim and I are guys that aren't going to hype stuff, and we're not going to sit there and say we have a lock for you, because there is no such thing. It just, none of us have a crystal ball. Nobody on the planet has a crystal ball the last time I checked. And we did give out our best research for you to use. A lot of our information you may not like, so it's up to you whether you want to use it or not. So if you want to get my 10-unit max bet, which is akin to game of the month, game of the year that others give out, that, with mine, there's no hype. It's all numbers, it's all facts, all supporting evidence that tell you why I'm making this a 10-unit bet. Then just simply send me an email at johnryansports@gmail.com, or check me out at Twitter @JohnRyanSports and the number 1, and I'll give it to you, and the research absolutely free.
John Ryan, always a pleasure to talk football with you. John, you keep pumping out the winners, and everybody, make sure you're following John. He's in every Saturday. During the London week games, for the next 2 weeks, John's going to be on at the same time now, 10 a.m. Eastern. Again, if you want the start-sit show, that'll be in 30 minutes, 11 a.m. Eastern. Quick question from Marlene. Is Miles Sanders playing this week? Actually, Charlene, it's a good question. I think that's when Adam Schefter is going to break overnight, but we don't know right now what his status is. The word was Frank Reich was hopeful he would play, but we'll know that. I wish I had the answer now. I don't. But yes, you definitely would be able to use Chuba Hubbard. Yep, he'd be a good play there. For John Ryan, I'm Jim Coventry. Good luck in week 4, and we will talk soon.